Let's go back hundreds and hundreds of years ago, where in these docks are some people and some cargo boards. Then one of the ship workers asks money to pay for the fare of the ship, but he seems out of it. So the ship worker takes some of the shiny belongings instead. He doesn't care, and seems to be sadly reminiscing the days he had with what presumably looks like his daughter. The ship sets off. And within this flashback, we flash back to 30 years. Talk about Inception. At this time, some kid secretly watches this old man doing some powerful martial art moves. The kid, who's watching from a boost up, is in total awe of the fighting moves he's witnessing. Once the man's done demonstrating, the kid falls back. The man goes back inside, then looks at the table the man smacked earlier. Turns out his smack was so powerful, he actually bisected the stone table. We go now to the same man from earlier training a bunch of dudes in combat, but he doesn't want this kid in here. So he tells him off. The kid goes outside to practice his moves, and apparently, he got this poor sucker to do his calligraphy homework for him. In exchange, he promises Nung Jin-sun to show him something really cool. Looks like they went to a forbidden shrine. In this shrine, he shows Jin-sun some certificates his dad was winning. Jin-sun's confused where he got this. So the kid brings him to the fight the next day. There's quite the crowd gathering around, and the combatants are introduced. The kid's father, named Huo Endi, and this dude named Zhao Zikang. Both combatants are representatives of their respective clans. Little Jin-sun and Huo Yanija here cut to the front of the row, and there, they meet Zhao Jian, Zikang's son. The two boys argue over whose dad's gonna win, and the waiver of game ending is signed. The battle started with a few fierce stares from both men. Then they meet stances. Fight. Both combatants start strong, but Endi takes the win in the first 2 rounds. He has Zikang on the ropes, but he gets distracted by his son. Zikang takes the opportunity to throw him off the ring, and Endi's defeated. Once all this is done, Yuan-Isha disappears, so Jin-sun looks for him. Here he is, crying like a little wuss. To add salt to that wound, Jian and his cronies come up to him to gloat. Jian taunts him in a fight, so Yuan-Isha accepts. They get into the ring and Yuan-Isha charges forward. Too bad for that smooth brain, he gets bodied immediately. Jian wins swiftly, and Yuan-Isha's defeated. From that day forward, he vows never to lose again. Next thing he does is sneak into his father's room to steal a bunch of martial arts notes. He's asking Jin-sun to copy it for him. Then one of Endi's lackeys takes him away because Endi wants to see him. Endi meets his son and scolds him about fighting instead of studying, so he's asking Lai Fu to get the rod. It's punishment time. Yuan-Isha's mother comes at night to stop it, so Endi just gives him a lighter sentence. Copying Confucius' teachings 10 times over. His mother visits him, and he tells her that he wants his father to learn wushu, to be strong and defeat Zhao. His mother makes it clear that wushu is for self-improvement and not for revenge. After that, Yuan-Isha pesters Jin-sun to finish his calligraphy for him, while he goes to practice his wushu moves once more. Skipping a few days ahead, he challenges Jian again. The audience watches as these two boys sign the waiver, then it's battle time. This time, Jian goes for the rush, but Yuan-Isha swiftly defeats him with a 1-2. Jian strikes again, but he's put again down to the floor by Yuan-Isha. The day is won, and he comes home with a big smile on his face. But on the other end, out comes this more mature young man. He's fierce at first, but seems to be just playing with his little girl. The young man is revealed to be Yuan-Isha many years later, and that little girl is actually his daughter, Jade. Yuan-Isha's mom wants him to get remarried because his daughter needs a mother, but he's far too busy bringing respect into the Huo family name. After that, it seems that he's praying to the spirit of his father, meaning Endi has already passed. He vows to be the champion of Tianjin. His daughter comes to offer him something, but only if he wins. Wins what? Well, it's the year 1900, and Yuan-Isha's walking through this bustling and cheering crowd. He seems to be cheered and respected by the people as a well-known master. He sees his opponent is none other than his childhood rival, Jian. He brags that he's fought in 38 different places, but Yuan-Isha thinks that's BS. The waiver's signed, and there goes Yuan-Isha rushing into the pillars, and into the tower he goes. The fight immediately begins as soon as he gets on top, and it looks like Jian is a bit in the lead with his fearsome strikes. He even manages to punch Yuan-Isha off. This doesn't mean defeat, however, because with the flow of water and the strike of a meteor, Yanija manages to land several devastating blows, which throw Jian off. He gets back up and the fight rages on, no matter how many techniques Jian pulls out. Yanija's prepared for it, which results in his win as Jian plummets out of the ring. He's fine, however, but he's defeated. The crowd goes wild as Yanija wins another fight. Let's go to this restaurant filled with a lot of people, where Yanija's victory celebrated. There we meet an older Jinsun as well. They're eating with a beautiful banquet prepared by Jinsun's restaurant crew, cause he grew up to be a successful businessman. Suddenly, two idiots interrupt their meal. They want to learn Master Huo's amazing moves. Yanija quickly accepts them with drinks. And he gives everyone food on the house. Later in the night, Jinsun gives Yanija some Western coffee, and he does like it. Added to that, Jinsun says that the Western world is slowly dominating. Well, all Yanija cares about is becoming a champion. So he shows Jinsun the arena and his perspective of winning.
我什么都没听到。
It's a new day, with already a new fight for Yanija. This montage shows him beating up a lot of people who are unique from each other, including shape, fighting styles, and even weapons. His ego is growing, so he challenges a lot of people all at once. It's no surprise that he defeats them all. That's why the masses know him as Master Huo. Once again, another victory for Yanija, so he gets more people who want to learn his fighting style. Jinsun gets that Yanija's bills are overdue. Later into the night, Jinsun says that he's defeated all of the fighters in Tianjin. He doesn't know when he'll stop.
你还是霍元甲，你不会变成另外一个人。
Not to mention his disciples come in just for free drinks and food, which escalates his debts to an exorbitant amount. Jinsun warns him to be careful with the people, and then he storms off. The next day, Yanija crosses paths with Qin Lei, another rival master. Lei starts to taunt, and this infuriates him. This leads him to be tyrannical towards his own disciples. To make things worse, his bills are climbing up through the roof. Again, thanks to the number of students that he has. Suddenly, some of his people come with a badly hurt student, and he hears that Lei did it.
师傅。
At Jinsun's restaurant, Lei and his family celebrate with an expensive banquet thanks to it being his birthday. Somewhere nearby, Yanija crashes the party with his disciples. One of Lei's family members comes to kindly ask him to drink somewhere else. So Yanija gets him in a chokehold. Lei notices this and tells him not to fight today, cause he's more in a celebratory mood.
你想怎样？
But Yanija asks him to either sign this waiver and fight, or kneel and ask for forgiveness for this injured student. Jinsun comes to stop this encounter, but all the power goes to Yanija's head, and he claims that any damages to his restaurant from their fight will be covered by him. Jinsun has had enough, and it's friendship over. He tells everyone to evacuate, or watch the sword fight at their own peril. The two men square up. Then their metal begins clashing. Blinded by vengeance, Yanija starts boldly but without balance, so he's thrown off a few times by Lei. Unluckily for Lei, he's a master of martial arts and lands the first swipe to his head. Lei manages to scratch back at his arm. Then a grudge stare happens. Round 2, and their swings have more weight now, but Lei cuts off the tip of Yanija's sword. Their fight eventually ravages to the waters. Then a bigger part of Yanija's sword gets cut off. He's now left with only 2 fists, and still manages to fling the sword away from Lee. Round 3, and it's CQC time. With crashes here and there, Yanija quickly steals the upper hand, and lands a lot of bone-breaking strikes on Lei. He finishes Lei off with a punch deep into his chest, and the battle is won. But at what cost? His disciples happily take him away to drink, but it looks bad for Lei. Qin, Lei's godson, looks like he's in full Beatrix Kiddo mode. The next early morning, he gets the hateful news from Jinsun that Lei now has a straight ticket to the morgue. It seems that Yanija's in full regret, and then he finds out that his mother got assassinated. Sadly, Jade also bites the dust. Starting to look like China's version of the Uchiha clan massacre. Yanija immediately rushes to the Qin household with sword in hand, only for the godson to admit he did the assassination. Before his sword could meet his throat, he ends up in a harakiri. Looks like morality is finally catching up to him, as he chooses not to end the Qin legacy. Outside, he's met with his students, and the beaten student from earlier admits that it was his fault why Lei beat him up, thanks to him insulting his wife. Why didn't he say so beforehand? Which brings us back to the present of of the past, a weary and older Yanija on a boat. He goes into a self-imposed exile and lives like a dirty hobo now. He's in a pathetic and depressive state, and even almost drowns himself. That's until he's saved by some random people, and he finally wakes up, eats his first meal in a while. He's been taken care of by this young lady and her grandfather in some remote region. The girl eventually offers to wash his hobo hair, and he accepts. He's back to his old look.
这样才能轻省地走在世上。
And he finally gets out of bed because of the pouch that Jade made for him. He finally gets out of the house to meet the local children. Then they take him to a field of children having some innocent fun. He finally smiles after a long time. The next thing that brings him out of the house, this carabao named Huang, which somewhat inspires Yanija. He seems to live a peaceful life with his girl and her grandma, and he even goes to lunch with them for the first time.
都学会了卡事儿。
To earn his due diligence, Yanija even works in the fields. In this region, he's known by the name of Ox. Then this kid shows him that he did a bad job of planting, so Yuchi, the young girl, is replanting it for him. By his shame, he musters up to help her replant.
这样大家才能活得平安快乐。
He grows close to her, and seasons come and go as he still lives there. Eventually, Huang, the hard-working carabao, bites the dust, and this leaves Yanija in a state of thought of what he's doing with his life. He's in peace, but he gets the word that a little boy from earlier is about to get brutally punished for stealing. The farmers come to the other clan to apologize for Guy's mistakes, but they still think his whips and lashes are not enough, so the punishment goes on. Yanija wants to take the punishment for him, but the clan's head honcho says there's a different punishment for adults: fist fighting.
一言为定吗？一言为定。
It's settled, and this is Yanija's first battle in more than a year. He doesn't do anything but take the blows like a champ. The farmers want to help, but Yanija insists he do it on his own. It's time for the second round, and this time, he uses martial art prowess to dodge enemy blows. The head honcho is true to his word and lets Guy go. Eventually, Yanija and Yuchi grow close. Then the kids like Guy and Ning want to learn martial arts from him. He does warn the kids that the martial art is for defense, and not for vengeance. And one day, Yanija realizes he has to go back, so he does all the work, and he notifies Yuchi and Granny-san. Apparently, he's been here for years, and he finally tells Yuchi his real name.
这些是一路上的换洗衣服。
He packs up and leaves. Peacetime is now over. It's now time for World War I. It's the year 1907, and Tianjin becomes partly colonized, but Yanija has to come back to his hometown. His place is now filled with all kinds of different foreigners. At least the local loony remembers him. He returns to his old home, and Laifu's still there to greet him. His home feels empty, however. Despite the changes, his father's study is still retained thanks to Laifu. Partly also thanks to Jinsun for sending money. He then tears up and burns all his father's fight waivers because he realizes that he, and even his now deceased father, doesn't need him anymore. He visits his family's grave and apologizes to him one by one. After this, Yanija goes to Jinsun's restaurant to probably apologize, but he doesn't want to see him, sadly. Instead, however, he gets his old wushu notes back that Jinsun wrote for him. He even has the balls to go to the Qin household, ask for forgiveness, and even pay his respects to the past grave of Qin Li. Suddenly, some of his old disciples recognize him, and they apologize to him. Despite being rejected by the now meat-selling Jian, he leaves him a familiar gift: his old notes on wushu martial arts. Soon, Yanija gets word of something challenging all Chinese fighters.
他们都已经结束了。
Eventually, Jinsun does agree to see Yanija, and he promptly apologizes for all his mistakes. Despite that, he's asking to borrow money from him as well to fight again. Of course, Jinsun rejects, but he's left with the newspaper of the fighter who Yanija wants to take down. Jinsun's a bit of a tsundere, but he does cough up the money to him later. Fast forward 2 years later, and the big Hercules O'Brien is introduced in this circus tent. I wonder who's the poor sucker who's gonna go against him. Well, no one other than Yanija. He wants to have a good, clean fight, but Hercules takes that the wrong way. Yanija shoves him a little, but Hercules finally revs up his brutal strength. He manages to dodge his strikes and escape his holds with precision and grace. With strategic timing and amazing accuracy, Yanija manages to keep himself toe-to-toe with Hercules. Here comes his massive, merciless body slam. Guess what? Yanija manages to withhold his body slam and throw him off. The crowd's going wild, but the battle isn't over. Hercules rushes to him, but he reverses the rush, throwing him off yet again. Only this time, he's going to land towards some sharp nails on the side of the ring. Luckily, he catches him, and instead of a fight, Hercules thanks him. The two men respond with their honor intact. This event makes headlines. Then it's the start of Yanija uniting all of the wushu schools together. Later on, he's called to an audience by none other than Jin-sun. He's totally forgiven him for redeeming himself. It's banquet time, and surprisingly enough, Yanija has already given up drinking.
给国人真足了面子。
Jin-sun says that China needs to be united against the world so they could stop calling China as the sick man of Asia. Yanija agrees. Then Jin-sun says he's staying here in Shanghai, and that he sold his beloved restaurant to fund the unity of Yanija's vision, a united China that'll take on the world of martial arts. This vision includes turning Kung Fu into a sport. Soon Yanija's vision is getting traction, and even Zhao Jian's there in the flesh to join him. Later on, he makes the mantra of Wushu clear, to better oneself. In 1910, the Jingwu Sports Federation took its first photo. Somewhere in the rich villas of Shanghai, some old men are conspiring against Yanija and his vision, saying that Mr. Mita has rigged the matches to be against Yanija's favor.
Our victory is guaranteed.
Back at the school, Jin-sun's worried for him because of these odds, but he's confident in himself and for the sake of his cause. Yanija then goes to a very mystical tea party with these fine gentlemen right here and practices his wushu on top of a mountain. Let's go to Shanghai in 1910, and in this grand fight arena, a large crowd is gathered, complete with the rich, some drummers, and the martial arts masters from different corners of the world. This is an all-out battle between the Foreign Chamber of Commerce versus the Jingwu Sports Federation, mainly just Yanija alone.
以其中一方倒下。
Tanaka from the Japanese division doesn't like these dishonorable odds against Yanija, but Mr. Mita insists. First round, Yanija versus the British boxer, Peter Smith. The bell rings and Peter lays down a heavy but quick barrage of fists. Yanija rings him out, and he's defeated with ease. Up next, Han Herzon from Belgium. They're fighting with lances this round, and Han puts up a hard offensive front. His offense is, however, shattered once he gets too eager. Frustrated, Han breaks his lances and goes for the throat, but Yanija gets his throat first.
Going to lose.
After this stand, they return to battle, but Yanija quickly remains cool and he wins, leaving Han in frustration. Serving up the stabs next is Anthony Garcia, the Spanish fencer. A clash of metal and sweat ensues, but our man gets the first swipe towards Anthony. His amazing dexterity disarms him quickly, and he yields with honor. The Foreign Chamber of Commerce is running out of options, so they might resort to something very underhanded. The last round is against Tanaka, and he warns Yanija that they're setting him up. He compliments his kindness, but still wishes to fight on. The bell rings, and it's a katana versus a 3-section staff. Like all the others, Tanaka starts strong and is on the offensive, and his rush causes Yanija to take the first blow. Soon, the clashes of metal and fury makes them forcibly exchange weapons with each other. Tanaka's not so good with the staff, so respectfully, the two honorable fighters exchange weapons. Round 2 begins, and Tanaka slices up Yanija's staff into 2 Arnie sticks. Yanija's now on the offensive, and then someone switches one of the teapots. The round ends in a draw. Sadly, Yanija drinks from the switched pot. Round 3 starts, and they're locked in hand-to-hand combat. The fight starts well, but Yanija's beginning to feel the effects of the tea. Soon he bursts, and Tanaka didn't even land his blow. A timeout is called.
你怎么了？中毒了。
Yanija says his tea got poisoned, and sadly, he says it's too late for him. He tells his students not to take revenge because it's an endless cycle. He says his farewell to Jin-sun and his students, and he decides to go out with a bang. He returns to the ring with the crowd cheering for him. Tanaka grants his last wish by not holding back in round 4. This round goes slow, but brutal and vicious. Yanija's losing his edge, but he still fights on. Tanaka manages to stop his final and lethal punch, and then Yanija collapses.
Go! Make the announcement!
Tanaka is an honorable man, so he stands him up and he admits defeat. The crowd rushes to Yanija, while Tanaka tells Mita he's a disgrace to Japan. Yuji sees the spirit of Yanija doing wushu at the last moment. And with that, wushu graces the lands of China. Control your strikes. Because that's it for Fearless. What you guys think about this historic fighting movie? Let us know in those comments below using that hashtag cinema recap. This was Fearless by the China Film Group, starring Dong Yang, Nakamura Shido II, and Jet Li. Until that next wushu lesson, farewell.